How on earth do I get people to listen to my podcast? Scratching my head. Welcome to Geelong Podcasters, your weekly podcast for tips and tricks to grow your audience. We are a group of passionate podcasters located in Geelong and the Bellarine in Victoria, Australia. If you're down our way at the end of the month, why not come to one of our free monthly meetup events? And also, find the booking links and more in the show notes. Thank you to everyone for your patience during this time. For those who are listening to the podcast live as it comes out, we did take a 2-week break from the podcast, and I apologize for that. Personal life comes up and we deal with it as best we can. So I thank you for your patience and look forward to continually being able to deliver the podcast for you. In regards to today's topic of how do I get people to listen to my podcast, as I've discussed in previous episodes of the Geelong Podcasters podcast, I should say, is that podcasting is a slow growing marketing channel, or it is something that you grow over time and is not necessarily something you're going to start out with a lot of listeners unless you've already built a community of people who are willing to listen to podcasts, but also, for example, maybe very interested in the topic that you have to discuss. And you may have the best podcast out there, but if you've got no listeners, then is the podcast doing its job? That is okay. So the things that I want to discuss with you guys today on the podcast is promoting yourself on social media and showcasing yourself on your websites, using SEO optimization to make sure that you are found organically online by people who are interested in your subject matter, and also engaging with the current community that you have. Making sure that you listen to their requests, encourage reviews and shares, because most likely people are going to engage with a podcast, honestly, usually from word of mouth. Most people who engage with a podcast, or most of the podcasts that I come across that I listen to on a regular basis, is because they were recommended on other podcasts that are similar in the niche, or they were told to me by various business associates, by various people in my life, my personal life, who say, hey, you're interested in this subject. Why don't you listen to this podcast? I find it very funny. I find it very engaging. I find it very insightful. Whatever the reasons are, having word of mouth is very popular and very useful as a tactic to grow your listenership when it comes to podcasting. Let's go back to the original mention that I said there, which was promote yourself on social media. There's a reason why video podcasting has become very popular over recent years, and that is because you can see people's faces and reactions when recording a podcast in real time in these social media feeds. You don't necessarily need to record your video podcast. You can use this by utilizing a collection of slideshow or videos or images. You don't necessarily have to record a video, but if you do or are able to record a video of you as you're recording the podcast, this makes promoting yourself a whole lot easier. But you can also just do this by taking snippets of your audio and relating it to, for example, relevant memes or relevant movies or images that may not be owned by you, but you can use to comedic effect, making sure that you're not stepping on anyone's copyright, for example. And you can use this to help promote the work that you do on social media. I don't recommend that being your entire strategy just because you do not own social media. It is building on rented land. They can do whatever they want with it. So when it comes to promoting yourself on social media, do your best to lead people to your website or some sort of platform that you have more control over. Of course, this takes a bit of time and a bit of know-how, but there are a lot of website builders out there, very either cheap or completely free website builders out there, that you can build really basic website podcasts that can tell people where to listen to in really clear, easy, clickable formats. You're able to have all your show notes there, so when people need to find more information about you on your podcast, the show notes are there. And they can get to know more information about you and maybe even interact with you in comments on your website, or maybe able to easily send emails to you. As I mentioned with the website, SEO optimization, which is search engine optimization, is key when trying to get people who are not necessarily in your sphere, or people who maybe don't listen to a lot of podcasts. They may find or stumble upon you because of organic words that you use within your website copy. Honestly, podcast episodes or even series of podcast episodes themselves, but I wanted to give you a light taste of what you could possibly do to help boost your listenership for your own podcast. If you have any recommendations yourself, feel free to reach out. This podcast is sponsored by me, Zoe, the Video Confidence Coach, connecting the dots of your personal brand with the power of video. See more in the show notes. Speaking of show notes, see all the show notes, including links, upcoming events, and details for this episode and many more in the episode description, or just go to vcc.training/Geelong-podcasters. Make sure you tune in for next week.